Well, good afternoon, everyone. Can everybody hear me? All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Well, we're finally here to 2021, and the 2017 bonds have actually paid down enough to where we can restructure those bonds, and we can start talking about an aquatic center. Tonight's our first informational meeting to start the process, and I think the first, probably there's a lot of things to discuss, but the feasibility study that this council had put together in 2016, we were able to reuse that, so we did not have to pay or even really go after a new feasibility study, which would have set us back a little bit more on time. But I'd like to thank Kyle McCauley from Larkin Aquatics for working with Steve and bringing the feasibility study back up to speed. There's several things we'd like to do now. Like I said, this will be our first look at it, and we need to, hopefully we can establish a timeline and look at a total cost for the facility and discuss what the operational and personnel cost would be. I think Felicia got everything sent to everyone. But tonight we have with us, we have Steve Ibbotson, our Parks Director, Tyler Winningham, our Chief Financial Officer, and Leanne, I think I'm going to say this right, Miss Burnett, from Stevens to answer any questions you might have about the bonds and how we can refinance that. Things have changed a little bit since the 2016 feasibility study. We've gotten a lot of input from the citizens who are not only wanting to see an aquatic center, which I think is very important for our city, but we have folks that are interested now as well in bringing a top-notch soccer facility to Conway, which will bring some economic impact to our city, pickleball, tennis, and volleyball. So I would like for y'all to consider those two as we move forward. That being said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ibbotson and let him bring his part into it, and then council will open up to the floor. We'll start with Steve, and then we'll go to Leanne and Mr. Winningham, and then council, whatever questions y'all got, just fire away. Mr. Ibbotson.
Yes, sir. As the mayor said, Kyle was able to update our feasibility study. He's currently working on some construction numbers for us for each of those scenarios that they provided in the feasibility study. One of the things that first thing we'll need to do is, we'll have to get professional services on board so that when the council decides, if the council decides to take this to a vote, then we have something that we can present to the voters so they know what they're going to vote on. As Mayor said, there's been a lot of interest in tennis and volleyball and soccer. But one of the things I believe all of you have drawings on the South German property. And as you can see, the majority of that property is either in the floodway or in the floodplain, leaving, we had some planning done on that for an aquatic center using the portion down by Favre Lane, which was the largest portion of it out of the floodplain. And you can see you only have about 2.5 acres for outdoor aquatics. In one scenario, 2 acres in another one. But there's also a high power line running right through the middle of that section. So one of the things we may want to do is we may want to look at another option for location. And I'm open to any questions.
Mr. Ibbotson.
Mr. Hawkins.
Are initially we looking at just an outdoor facility?
What was presented to the council in the feasibility study is a combination of.
That's been a long time ago, by the way.
Yes, sir. That's 16.
Like I said.
But according to the people that did the study, They said we haven't gained any competition. There's nobody else come in here and put a pool in. So there's no competition there. So they didn't see any reason to spend the money to do another feasibility study. But
No,
what they wanted to do was update what they had previously provided us.
And it'll be up to this council, Mr. Hawkins, to
Right.
decide if y'all want to outdoor or indoor. It's entirely in y'all's court.
Well, and that's what I wanted to throw into the mix. I just don't see any need in building anything that's going to be used maybe 4 months out of the year. I'm sorry, I'm just not for that at all. We need to have, if we're going to do this, we need to do it right, like we've done most other projects that we've done in this city. We need to do it in a manner that Conway can be proud of what we have. And that's my opinion on that. Other people like to bike and other people like to play tennis. Myself, I like to swim. Obviously, I'm past the point of competitive age swimming. So that's not going to be on my radar. But if you turn on television right now, you are seeing competitive swimming going on all across the nation. Conference meets are happening in major athletic conferences around this. And I think that we need to be not pigeonholing ourselves into a situation where we've got a facility we can't use but 4 months out of the year, but build something we can be proud of and can ask other people to come to our community to participate.
Hey, Mr. Evanson, can you remind us what size pool, what length of pool was in the feasibility study? Do you remember? Or can you?
I believe they looked at 25 meters by 25 yards.
Is that a competitive pool to hold state meets or not,
Yes.
or regional meets?
High school and college currently swims yards right now.
If I remember correct, I'm old, and let me apologize first, but I think that was one of the main things we talked about was having an indoor pool. For that reason, what you're suggesting, Mary, I'm like Andy. I don't think we were talking about a 4 month out of a year pool. We were talking about a pool with indoor facilities so we could use year round.
I was thinking we had talked about one outside and inside that we could use.
We have, and Mr. Ibbetson's going to present y'all with all that information. He was just starting off with what he had there.
Okay.
There's several options. We're not tied down to any one thing. Like I said, this will be up entirely to the council. He's just going to present all sides of it, as is Mr. Winningham on the cost, and
Okay.
and then it'll be your decision from there. So go ahead, Steve.
Well, that's all I had. I mean, the three scenarios they have is scenario one, strictly outdoor. Scenario two is strictly indoor. And scenario three encompasses both indoor and outdoor.
Hey,
I like
Steve.
3 already.
Yes, sir.
Steve, do we have any other land? Does the city have any other land besides that South German land that could accommodate what we're talking about?
There are some opportunities out there.
Not that we own though, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. And I have one question about the land on South German Lane. Can the parking lots be in the floodplain?
Yes.
Yes.
So does that open up any more buildable?
Well, if you look at
space?
those three scenarios or those concepts for the aquatic center down along Favre, you don't want to put a pool under the high powered lines. So they try to maximize that as much as possible. And about all they got was in concept C, they got about 3.3 acres. And that would be strictly an outdoor facility there.
So what other alternative things could go on the South German Lane property?
There's I want to say, I think you guys have it. It's concept B, where it shows the entire, pretty much the entire property we have down there, which is close to 100 acres. We could definitely, if we did not put an aquatic facility down in that area along Favre, we could, we could put pavilions and playgrounds and open space that we've heard a lot of people are asking for, is more just open space
Yeah.
to do.
So how big is, and I didn't go look this up, how big is the South German Lane property in total that we own?
It's right at 100 acres.
And only 3 acres is buildable?
Well, you have some at the very northern edge that's out of the floodplain. Everything on that design master plan for that property, for the most part, put everything that you definitely wouldn't want flooding out of the floodplain. We have a disc golf course in there. That wouldn't hurt if it flooded. We have.
That just seems like a really small, what is that, 3% of the total is buildable.
Yes, I mean, there's obviously things you can do with that property. It's just that it's kind of like the soccer park. You put the building up 15 feet higher than the fields. There's a reason for that.
Well, we always need practice space for baseball, softball, for those kids to practice, because they're all the time looking for a place to practice, and they're usually filled up.
That's one of the biggest challenges. Whatever season you're in, once season starts, there's no practice area for kids.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay, from what I can see from the head shaking, I think just talking about a 4-month pool is pretty much off the table with everyone, and that's fine. I agree with that. So Steve, share with them about an indoor concept, and I agree with Mr. Hawkins. We don't want to just be another indoor swimming pool. We want this to be something that everyone in Conway can be proud of, and that people around the state talk about. So let's move to that, Mr. Ibbotson.
Well, and if I could say one thing about that, even if indoor, outdoor, it needs to be family friendly and open for recreation a lot of the time.
Yes.
Whether we have competitions or not is okay, but we're building this for kind of the broader citizens of Conway.
We're building it for the citizen first.
Yeah.
100%.
I just want to make sure that.
But they kept coming to the meetings talking about, not just for the competition for the schools and stuff, a facility for people to use, because it's a lot of people, like we had about the tennis thing, it's a lot of people have a need to go swimming in Conway as well.
Right.
Well, we need to build it for the future as well, as our population grows, that we can accommodate that as well.
And Ms. Mel, back to your previous question, we have been working with the Human Development Center, and they have donated some money, they have donated some property for a lease, for a very long-term lease for a soccer facility. And I think they might also work with us to give us some land to lease out there for a swimming facility, should the council decide to go that route. Mm-hmm. So we do have some other options out there.
Okay, good.
Yes. Yeah.
Before Steve continues on with what you asked him to do, Mr. Mayor, I do want to point out, and I too think that we need to do this as best that we can, indoor, if at all possible. But I do want to pay a particular note to page 2 of that study from 2016. An outdoor pool only operationally can break even. All right. When you start doing indoor pools, we start running a deficit operationally. I'm not saying that's a deal killer or something we cannot overcome, but let's do realize that that has a different ongoing annual cost, especially if we want to keep things affordable to people. So there's a lot of things to think about here.
That was my concern too, David, was what is it going to cost to run the indoor pool? Because based off of the previous information we received from, like, say, the Jones Center and whatnot, it was pretty significant, close to $500,000 a year just to run it, an indoor facility.
And I have taken some time to call several mayors around the state who have aquatic centers, and they will all tell you that it is when you go with a large indoor facility, that it is a drain on your finances. They 100%, they've all agreed to that.
Well, the reason,
So,
the reason, the reason
echoing
for
what
that,
Mr. Grimes went. Go ahead,
the
Mr.
reason-
Hawkins.
the reason for that is it's open 3 months of the year. I mean, that's why.
No, that was indoor
No,
facility.
that's the outdoor does not cost. I mean, it's half, if not a third of what it costs for an indoor.
That's what I'm saying. You only use it 3 months out of the year.
Not
Sure.
oh man, we use our pool 6-7 months out of the year.
Yeah,
You
now
could-
you're
you
still,
could
now you're
go-
talking about, now you're talking about heating something.
And Steve, would an indoor pool, a competitive pool, bring in the amount of money that we would hope it would, or do you have any idea?
It's not going to, I don't believe it's going to generate a large amount of meets, but certainly we have our local swim teams that could make use of it, where they host people from out of town to come and swim against them. That obviously is going to bring people to town. So yeah, I mean, it will generate some, but I was looking back over the survey, and the leisure and recreational swimming was at 87.2% interest in the. Now, believe me, I think we need a competitive part. Now, what that is, that's totally up to y'all. It can be 25 meters by 25 yards. Again, that's what most of the kids in Conway are swimming now. The high schools are swimming. And it may be that those teams already have a place to swim, and we just look at doing an indoor facility that has something like Bentonville, that has a play area inside, and an area where you could do meets or lap swim.
I just think that if we do whatever we do, I'm all for the indoor. I've got 4 kids that swim competitively, so I mean, obviously, it'd be a great asset to the community. I think that we need to make sure we have some sort of constant funding that's going to go towards that outside of what we have now. Like, it's going to go towards the upkeep of it. That's my only concern with the indoor. I mean, that's what I want. Don't get me wrong. It's exactly what I want, but there's got to be some sort of money that's dedicated to that upkeep.
Where does your
And
kids
Steve-
come?
Yes,
Steve,
ma'am.
would that pool be, how deep would that pool be? Would it be the same depth, the whole pool that's
It
indoor?
depends on if you're talking about a 25 meter versus a 50 meter. 25 meter, I think, can also be used for recreation. A 50 meter, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Ibbotson, I think a 50 meter, Mary, is 7.5 feet deep from end to end.
Yes.
And the whole pool would be that, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it
So that
be
would
really-
limit some of the recreation.
Mhm, for sure.
That's the 25 sounds good. Hey, Wes, where does your kids swim now?
One swims for the high school. The other 3 swim for Conway Crocs.
I mean, what pool do they use? That's what I was.
They I don't know where the high school swims, but the other one swim at Conway Regional right now. All the rest, which is very. I mean, that's a therapy pool. It's like 150 degrees. It's
Do
not
you
a
think
lap swimming pool at all.
you think we should talk to the schools and see what their interest is, so we might have a better idea if they're going to use the pools to their advantage?
I don't think it would hurt at all. I think we should ask everybody. You know,
Yeah,
I think it
Theo.
would definitely be good.
Yeah, who called? Yeah.
That's Dave. No,
David.
yeah, to build on what you just said, Theo, what I think we need to do is, I know that the mayor and Steve Ibbotson are constantly contacted by different interest groups looking at, like, what they talked about, from pickleball to volleyball to soccer to everything. And we've heard, if you're like me, I've heard from some of those folks as well. And I think we probably ought to, at some point, try to get some, I don't want to committee this to death, but get a representative or somebody from each of those constituencies to kind of get involved and talk about what they really, really would like, and what's doable. Because the worst thing we could do is build something too small that's not even useful to any of these groups. That'd be a bad thing.
Right.
We also don't want to build something too big that we can't sustain it. So we
And
probably
nobody
get
use it.
That's right. That's right. And we started to get some feedback from these groups about what it is in a perfect world would really meet their needs for now and going forward, and then kind of mesh all that together, because we got a lot of folk coming to the table to eat, and we only got so much food, so we're gonna have to sort this out.
Yeah, I'd like to address that's a
100%
Grimes'
on that.
thought there. I've already talked to Miss Sheila Isby. She is going to chair a committee for me on this, and I'd already thought about that, Mr. Grimes, of asking an individual from the swim community, the soccer community, the tennis community to serve on this committee, and Miss Isby has agreed to do that.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Hey,
I
can I
was
just we get Mr. Pruitt in there, since he has some swimmers? He should have some kind of input about that and knowledge of it.
The game changes a little bit, Mr. Jones, when you have two councilmen on there.
Oh, you can't do it?
It's going to be a public meeting anyway. I mean, so I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but anytime you have two councilmen in the room at the same time, then
Got cold
you have
press.
to change the rules. Yeah.
Hey, I think we certainly need someone on there that's going to speak for the youth that don't have a place to swim.
Yes.
Mhm.
Also, the seniors, us seniors that need a place to swim or aerobics or whatever.
I can't get that thought out of my head of me and you and Andy Hawkins out there swimming, Mr. Ledbetter.
And Mr. Jones, and Mr. Jones.
I forgot Mr. Jones was a senior.
There wouldn't need to be any diving events.
Hey, don't group me in that. All right, I'm still 49.
Well, my new bathing suit, my
You know
bathing
what I'm
suit for
talking
this year's
about.
has a skirt on it.
The people of Conway that really need a place to swim, not just
Yes.
Yeah.
competitively, but that haven't had a place to swim.
Ever.
Yeah. And
Right.
back to what Mr. Grimes was talking about as well. There's a very, very strong interest in this community for soccer and tennis and volleyball and even pickleball. So I think those are things we need to consider.
So
And what
I was going to say, do we have funding set aside to do the new soccer fields already?
Why
Or
don't
does
we
it
turn
have to come out of this?
Why don't we turn it over to Mr. Winningham at this time? Miss Mel.
Mhm.
Before you do that, if I can say one thing,
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr.
I
Grimes.
want to comment on what Mark said. Very good comments. As we get caught up in all these things we want to do, I think we all need to remember the main purpose of this for so long has been a place for our folks to swim.
Agree.
And so that
Yep.
needs to remain at the forefront of this.
Agree.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. Mr. Winningham.
Did the council receive a copy of the memo from Stevens, or do we need to do a screen share to show that to you?
I think
Would you
Felicia
screen share that if you
We
don't
did,
mind?
but screen share if you could.
Okay, let me get it up here. I'll make just a few comments before I put it up. We're in a pretty kind of a precarious situation right now. We've got this, the bonds that they were originally from back in 2007, I think, and we refinanced those in 2017 in order to achieve some interest savings. And now we can refund and refinance those again. The precarious situation is rates right now are really, really good. But the bad side of that is that this is really still not a good time to go to the bond market for bonds that are backed with restaurant tax revenue, because we're still dealing with the effects of COVID. So Ms. Burnett is here, joined us, and can really kind of talk in more detail about that. Let me see if I can get my screen shared here. Okay, can everybody see that? So what we've got in that bottom section, we asked Ms. Burnett to give us a scenario or give us 3 scenarios similar to the feasibility study. We've got generating project funds of $12, $18, and $25 million The middle column shows what the debt service payment would be on those. And then the far right column there at the bottom shows what our remaining A&P revenue would be that we could use for parks capital and projects that come up during the year. And right now, Leanne, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you if you'd like to speak any more detail about that.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Like Tyler said, basically we received a current market indication, understanding exactly what he said during a pandemic with restaurants not fully open, not at full capacity, the unknown. Restaurant gross receipt tax bonds are a difficult product to sell. Having said that, when you look at your historical restaurant tax collections and then where you ended up for 2020, what we're hearing consistently from many cities is that the results just weren't as bad as everyone expected. The other thing is if you finance it over 30 years in these scenarios, the lowest coverage you're looking at is a 1.85 times coverage, meaning for every dollar that you owe in debt service, you would have $1.85 in revenue based on the 2020 tax collections. The indication we received from our desk assumed that we insured the bonds and that the underlying rating of A was maintained. And in fact, I just received an email within the last hour from the rating analyst wanting to review the 2017 bond issue rating. So Tyler, I'll be getting with you on that tomorrow. But for our analysis, to be conservative, instead of using 2.4%, which is incredible to think that you can borrow that for 30 years, we went we ended up we were targeting a 3.5 coupon, which is a true interest cost of 3.57, just to give us a little bit of room should the market move by the time you go to the voters and you go to and you're successful and then you issue the debt. But I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about this memo.
And I'll just throw in, I appreciate y'all doing that, Leanne, because, if we wait until the point in time which, restaurant collections are restored and restaurants are fully open and that revenue is doing good, then rates probably will have increased by that time, don't you think?
If I had a crystal ball, but I will tell you, just in the last week, due to the uncertainty in the market, on the long end, there's a daily index called the municipal market data, and it's a daily rate over a 30-year bond of each 30-year maturity. On the long end, we've seen yields increase 20 basis points, 0.2%. So we're hoping that that's just some unsettling in the marketplace and that things will level back off because, early on in this year, things were great. So.
Right. So just to kind of point out there, to summarize that memo, our current debt service is $1,052,000 rounded off, and our annual revenue in 2020 was 3.389. So, about $2.3 million is what we typically had available for our annual A&P capital projects. And if we were to do a $25 million, or it wouldn't be a $25 million issue, but if we did a new issue to raise $25 million in project funds, that debt service would go up to 1.8 million, and we would only have 1.5 million annually for projects. And again, this is based on 2020 collections, which I hope is going to be the worst those ever look. I hope we bounce back this year and then get back in an environment where we're growing annually on that.
Tyler, if I could interrupt just for a second, I fully understand what you and Leanne are both saying and how it reduces the amount of money we have past the debt service of perhaps 1.8 for projects. But what I would counter with that is if we do these bonds and build this stuff, that's pretty much covered projects for a while. There are always little things that come up, rehashing playgrounds and things, but we've covered projects pretty much.
Right. And I'd defer to Steve on this. I think 1.5 million a year is still a decent amount to get, get things done. It's not just a gutting of that revenue, so to speak.
Well, and with it being based on the lower amount in 2020, to your point, I think hopefully it will go up. And once we're past the pandemic and restaurants open up again and travel and all that. So
Right.
that remaining would go up also.
Lynn, do you want to talk about what a potential timeline would be? How long it would take to get those project funds in hand?
Sure. So I think when we looked at this before, there's a 60-day notice requirement. Once the ordinance is passed by the city council, because this is not a new tax, a lot of times with sales and use tax, you have even longer process because of DF&A requirements, Department of Finance and Administration requirements. But basically, once the city council passes the ordinance, then the county clerk is notified, the election's held, and then we can basically start structuring the issue, preparing the bond offering documents, and go to market. So really the time consuming part is determining your projects. So then we know how to size the issue, and then holding the election, and then we can do the bond side.
And that election would be, the ballot language would be pretty specific, right? I mean, if we're talking about this discussion we've had tonight, indoor versus outdoor, the question would be pretty specific as to what we're going to build, correct?
Yeah, that's really a question for Gordon Wilburn. Bond councils take different stances on that. Typically, the primary projects are listed, and then usually there's a catch-all like parks and recreation, capital improvements for those smaller projects, so that if you have money left over, you can address things. But I would envision your larger projects would be listed.
I have a question. It might be for Mr. Finkenbinder. I recall there have been some state legislative activity around special elections. Would that impact this at all? Or has anything passed to impact that?
I'm not aware of anything that's passed that would impact that. That's something I could definitely look into.
That special election bill was voted down.
Was it voted down?
Yes.
Okay.
But we're still watching for others. And you brought up a good point. And I want to mention, the 60 days notice is only if it's not a primary or general election. So we would need to check to make sure if you waited till November, if that would take a 90-day notice instead of 60. But we can check with Gordon on that once you all decide how you want to move forward.
Thank you, ma'am. Council, this is, as we said, this is our first shake out of the box on this. It's going to be, it's going to be a great thing. We've got some things to work out. It's generated a lot of interest in this city for quite some time. And it's good to be finally at this point. I would like to hear from each of you, if you would just shoot me an email if you have any idea of anyone you'd like to put on this committee. I do think we need someone who's interested in all of it, but I agree back with what Mr. Ledbetter said, that our first goal has to be to get swimming to our folks here in Conway. But that's really all I have for tonight. This is a big move here, council. So anything you can think of, we can use this as a brainstorming. Any thoughts you have, any concerns, anything that Mr. Winningham or Leanne can answer, just fire away.
Okay, here I am, the prodigal child again, but I just want to say, let's not just put soccer on the back burner, because there's a lot of people who really talk about soccer. So let's keep that in mind as long as we're talking about the pool as well.
And soccer is an economic development driver that we could, and I may be the only one that feels this way, but I don't know that putting any more money into our current soccer facility is.
No.
is wise.
I
So-
agree.
I agree. I've been out there. No.
Yeah. So I think those other amenities are important. It's also important for us as a progressive city for businesses wanting to locate in Conway. You know better than I do that anything we can offer to folks who are bringing their families to this town is just going to help us in the long run. And you guys know that better than I do.
So let me go back to my question from before. Do we have any money set aside for soccer right now, or would it have to be part of this bond issue?
There's some funds available. There's not I think the last glance at soccer, if we did it on the museum property, was 4.5.
Okay.
That'd be a good place for it as well.
Yeah, Ms. Mel, I think we internally had discussed, if we were to go forward with that project, it would be some sort of, 5-year financing or something.
That's what that's what I was just thinking, a 5-year financing to do it.
Yeah.
Well, and I had this conversation, I think, with Felicia earlier or last week, is for us to be really cognizant about where we're going to have these facilities or where we might expand existing facilities. I know that talk about, volleyball. Well, does that need to be a separate thing, or can it be added on somewhere? Not necessarily with the aquatic center, but is there some other place we could put it where it's adjacent to existing facilities and not have things, spread out? Indoor tennis, it would be nice to keep it near where the tennis complex is now. And not have, if you're indoor tennis, you go over here. And if you're outdoor tennis, you go across town. So I just want us to kind of keep that location-ness in mind.
And there's another possibility. I don't have all the details on it right now, but Mr. Grimes actually set the meeting up with myself and a young man who is interested in a public-private partnership in Conway. And part of his goal is to build a facility that would have basketball and volleyball courts and things like that. And hopefully that will be coming before the council at some point. He's very motivated. He has all the details. He's very prepared. And I think he and I, and actually Mr. Finkenbinder, have a meeting here in the very near future. And once we get past that, then hopefully we'll have something to bring to the council there. Okay, council, if you don't have any more questions, anything you have, Sheila's not going to be able to defend herself because she's tied up at the moment. So anything you have, throw it on her. She's going to be the chairman of this committee. But you have to decide what you want, and you guys know that. And you have to decide how big we're going to go, how much money we're going to put towards this, and money towards other activities. So it rests entirely with each of you, but I think you've been working with us a lot longer than I have. I think most of you have a pretty good idea in your head what you would like to see and what your thoughts are. So please share those with Ms. Isby. And if you have someone you'd like for me to put on the committee, if you would email me their names. Anything else? All right. Well, this was like I said, first night, just kicking off, and it's going to generate a lot of interest. So I'm sure you're going to hear from your constituents, but that's good. That's what we want. We want the people of Conway to help drive this. So it is 6:10. We'll take about a 20-minute break, and we will reconvene at 6:30. If that's okay. Does anybody have anything before we pause? Okay. Leanne, thank you for your time, and thank you, council and Mr. Williams.
Leanne.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Mr. Walden, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
You gonna be around the office in the morning?
Yes, sir.
Would it be okay if I give you a call there?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. We always proceed each council meeting with a word of prayer, the Pledge of Allegiance. if you would like to, please feel free to join. Father in heaven, we thank you for the opportunity to bow humbly in your presence. Lord, we thank you that you are the one that holds all things. Lord, we pray for our meeting tonight, that Lord, that you would bless our decisions and open us up to doing what's best for this city. So we pray in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the
Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. We'll now call this meeting to order. Mr. Garrett, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Hawkins?
Here.
Mr. Grimes?
Here.
Mr. Pruitt?
Here.
Ms. Mel?
Here.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
And Mr. Jones?
Here.
Okay, you should have received copies of the city council meeting for the minutes for February 9th, 2020. Any corrections, changes, or comments?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as submitted. If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes 7-0. All right. Before we really get into our meeting, I would like to take just a quick moment to thank our departments during Snowmageddon. They did a tremendous job. Of course, we know that Finley and the street department worked nonstop and did a great job. Mr. Ledbetter, your crews did great out in the county too. We appreciate that. I spend time out in the county. Spencer Clausen and his crew at Physical Plant worked long hours downtown, working, clearing out parking spots and clearing off sidewalks and keeping City Hall open, and where folks could get in and out of the post office. Conway PD, I heard that they were helping folks that were stuck and helping getting out and pushing cars. Conway Fire, I know that they did some transporting of patients who had been released from Baptist Medical Center who had to spend another night or two or maybe more at the hospital because family couldn't get to them and the fire department transported them to their families. So there's just, in dispatch, our dispatchers, they fielded a lot of calls during all this and did a tremendous job. So I just wanted to take a moment to let our employees, and I'm sure I missed somebody, but they have all just stood tall and done a tremendous job. And I want to thank them all. All right. Next, we have our monthly financial report ending January 31st, 2021. Mr. Winningham, sir, you are up.
There we go. Okay, we got our first month of 2021 we're looking at here, January. We're off to kind of a slow start in some regards. Sales tax was well. Sales tax in the general fund was up about 6.2% over the same month last year. So that continues to be on an upward trend. Where I was saying we were kind of off to, excuse me, a slow start. You'll see our franchise fee revenue was very small. We had for whatever reason, Conway Corp was just a little bit behind in getting us those payments. We didn't get those until the 1st of February. So in February, you should see some catch up there, but our bottom line would have looked, quite a bit better had we had that franchise fee revenue shown there. There was another one I was going to mention, but I can't remember what it is now. I think that's all. Anyway, street fund, all of our state revenue sources are off to a strong start there. The turnback, the half-cent turnback, we got some severance tax money, and then the wholesale turnback. Those were all off to a good, strong start. And then you can see, other than personnel, the street department spent almost nothing in January. So their bottom line is off to a great start. And if you go to the sanitation revenues and expenditures, again, you can see we have no revenue shown there for sanitation fees, similar to the franchise fees. Those came from Conway Corp. So we got those in the 1st of February. And also similar to the street fund, you'll see there that in the expenditures, other than personnel, Mr. Hopper spent very little as well. So bottom line still doesn't look good because of the absence of that sanitation fee revenue, but all other things considered, everything is looking well. In the airport fund, our fuel sales were not quite as strong as they were this time last year, but overall revenue did well. And if you compare the net revenue January of 21 to the same figure in January 2020, it was a lot better month overall than it was last year. So all things considered, we're off 2021 and hoping to see our sales tax continue to grow and looking for good things this year. I'll be happy to answer any questions or discuss anything further if the council wishes.
I make a motion to approve the monthly financials.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the monthly financials ending January 31st of 2021. Any further discussion?
Mr. Winningham,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
in the pay-as-you-go sales tax fund, we're looking at about $4 million in there. Is that right? Am I reading that right?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Just wanting to ask that question.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 7-0. All right. Thank you, Mr. Winningham.
Yes, sir.
Next up, we have the Community Development Committee and Mr. Hawkins. We will turn this over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First item on this portion of the agenda is a resolution to approve the consultant for the Community Development Block Grant Program to prepare the 5-year consolidation plan. And Kiara has popped up on our screen, and I bet you can tell us all about this, Kiara. Thank you.
Yes, so this is our 5-year plan that we do every 5 years. It is a requirement by HUD. And so we had 5 consulting companies bid, and they are going to do the consolidated plan, the analysis of impediments, as well as the 1-year action plan. Again, all of those are required by HUD. And so this resolution is just for your approval of the lowest bidder, which was Chrysalis.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve this resolution for the consolidated plan for CDBG. Any further discussion?
What's our resolution number, Mr. Garrett?
It's gonna be R2110.
Thank you.
Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed.
Passes 7-0. Thank you, Kiara.
Thank you.
Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is our consideration to approve a conditional use permit to allow a child care facility in O2 property for property located at 930 Wingate Drive, Building E. And this was reviewed by the Planning Commission on February 16th of this year. And at that time, they voted 7-0 with 1 abstention to forward this to City Council with a recommendation of approval with 7 conditions. And Mr. Walden, would you like to summarize some of this for us?
Yes, so this is a conditional use application. Essentially what a conditional use means is that within the zoning district, which this is zoned O2, which is an office district, a childcare facility is allowed or may be allowed upon conditional review. So if conditions can be made such that it makes the use compatible in that location, then it is okay in that sense. And it's voted on by the Planning Commission and the City Council. The 7 conditions are largely standard ones in terms of limiting the hours of operation, limiting drive-through. Part of that is just the site where it's located makes it very difficult with that. One of the big ones is any expansion in the use would need to be re-permitted by you all as well as the Planning Commission. But these are fairly standard conditions for a child care facility.
Mr. Walton, where is the outside playground area?
That is on the very south end. So it is they're going to locate it in basically what is an existing parking area that isn't necessarily necessary for parking on the site, but it will be backing up to the family home to the south.
It will be backing up to homes.
Yes. No, we did not receive any comments in opposition on this particular application. So I can't speak for the particular owner on that, but I know that they were notified.
Okay. So has there been any measures made for some kind of fencing or greenery that?
Yeah, so the fencing requirements, those are state requirements that we are reflecting in there. But basically, it's a tall perimeter fence around the play area.
Mark, we've been down that road before.
Yes.
Well, all of us have been, I guess, with
Yep.
it, with playground backing up to a residential area.
One real one, for sure.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And right now, they may not think much about it, but you put a bunch of kids back there yelling and screaming for hours on end, they're going to wish they probably had said something.
That's right. I agree.
30 children maximum on this, James, is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
And
Okay,
7
council,
a.m.
what's your wishes?
To grant the conditional use permit.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the conditional use permit to allow a childcare facility in O2 zoning for property located at 930 Wingate. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Uh,
Aye.
All opposed.
No.
Okay, let me see a show of hands for the ayes. And a
I
show of
think-
hands.
And David.
Yeah, David.
David's aye. David's
Okay,
aye.
okay, and show of hands that are nay. Okay, that passes 5-2. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance requesting to rezone 5 acres of property located north of Gentry Lane, which is northwest of Lakefront Drive and West End Street. It's presently an RU zoning, R1 zoning, and the requested zoning is a PUD. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their meeting on February 16th. And at that time, the commission voted 8-0 to send this to City Council with a recommendation of approval with 11, count them, 11 conditions. So there's a bunch on here. Mr. Walden, would you like to talk about this one as well?
Yes. So this is a residential PUD, a plan unit development. Essentially, what the plan unit development means is that it is I wouldn't necessarily say negotiated, but there is a give and take between the developer and planning staff and the planning commission on a set of conditions that then make the zoning for the site. And what they are intending to do is develop a 4 lot subdivision there that will be gated with private streets that is on Gentry Lake. That's one of the 2 lakes that's in that immediate area that are sort of a couple twin lakes up there. There was neighborhood concern with this particular location. I think most of those concerns through the review and approval process, the applicant overcame. But we did have concern from the local neighborhood. In terms of looking at the conditions with the PUD, some of these are fairly standard. Apart from all of the standards that exist within that are defined by this, it would otherwise be governed by the R1 standards. There'd be a maximum of 4 lots, maximum 45 feet on the height of the residences. The front, exterior, and rear setbacks would be 25 feet. The interior setbacks would be 6 feet. They would be allowed to have 1 accessory structure per primary residence. on the north side of the access easement. So that's that private drive. In terms of trees, any trees that are larger than 12 inches in diameter have to be remain. So they're not allowed to clear cut the property, which the developer does not intend to clear cut the property. Part of this is meant to be a sort of a natural style development. But the clear cutting, any tree that's over 12 inches, unless it directly impedes house construction, would have to remain. Those are really the main ones. They would have to form a POA for maintenance of the street. So the city would not be maintaining this since it would be behind a gate with that. So that's really in essence the entirety of the development.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Walden.
I make a motion to waive the 3 readings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
Make a motion for adoption.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion?
That ordinance number, Mr. Garrett, is
2127.
27. Thank you.
That is a beautiful hidden gem area in Conway. Peter and I have ridden our bikes down there, and because it's very close to where we live, and it's beautiful. I've always wondered what might happen with that property back there.
Great. It's really, really great.
Kelly, we'll sell you a lot. We'll sell you.
I bet you would, Skip.
Hey, I might be interested.
Come on, Wes. They're all acre lots. One's a little bigger than an acre.
Okay.
And it's all part of Ward 2, Wes. So that's
I know
that's
there's not a lot of Ward 2 property that comes up for sale very often.
It does have a little hill to come up to finish your bike ride if you go into town, just to give you a fair warning.
So will it connect via West End or Lakefront Drive, or will it go over to Lakeview Acres?
It'll go to West End.
Okay.
Well, Lakefront.
Yeah, Lakefront. Yeah, Lakefront on Grandview.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah.
Well, there you go, Skip. You just sold 2 lots.
Perfect.
Kidding.
No. Two more to go. We can auction them off right now. Hey, Bart, aren't you looking for a new place?
Oh, I'm actually moving to the farm.
Well, this is close to it. It's close to it.
But thank you. Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mr. Pruitt?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Thank you, Skip. And,
Thank you.
Thank you, Skip.
All right. Mr. Hawkins, last item on your section tonight, sir.
Final item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance requesting to rezone about 6.5 acres of property located at 1150 Museum Road, number 1 and number 3 Oak Grove Drive. Those presently are zoned R1, and the requested zoning is a PUD. And we have an ordinance to read for this item. First of all, it was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their meeting on the 16th of this month. And at that time, 6 voted yes, no, or 0 votes for no, and 2 abstentions that the request be forwarded to the City Council with a recommendation of approval with 11, count them, 11 conditions. Again, seems to be a magic number. Mr. Walden, would you like to talk about this one real quickly?
Yes, so this property is located over by Smith Ford. They're building a new chicken restaurant, Raising Cane's, in front of Oak Grove Drive. There's a hotel or a motel next door. And this is kind of an area that I would say is probably a challenge to develop. It's an area where you've got an existing private drive. And so we felt that working with the developer on this in terms of a PUD is probably one of the better routes to go with this. In terms of looking at the PUD, it would be limited to single family and duplex uses. Staff felt that either of those types of uses were appropriate in this area. and really giving them the option to go between that. Because it is a transition from commercial back to residential, and it's got some existing old residential in there. And so it felt like that was a good transition. We did want to ensure a certain quality with the development with that. So, limiting the building materials to brick and stone or hardy board, wood. Other materials are permitted by permission with the planning director. Although vinyl siding is one particular material that would be limited by this. Above and beyond anything that else that is listed in the zone itself, it would be generally governed by the R1 regulations. So, in terms of setbacks and all of those fun things, it would be a maximum of 32 additional dwelling units.
Good. Any questions of Mr. Walden? We have an ordinance to read for this item. It's ordinance 02128.
I'll take a motion to waive 3 readings.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
I make a motion for adoption.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Ms. Mill,
Aye.
Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Pruitt.
Aye.
Passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Walden. Thank you, Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, next we hear from the Personnel Committee, and we have a resolution authorizing the transaction of business for the city's employee defined benefit pension plan. Ms. Lisa Mabry Williams will speak to this.
Yes, this is a resolution at the request of our financial advisor, Meridian. When we created the new pension plan, we did not pass a resolution, and technically the old board is still on record for them to do business on behalf of the pension board. And the old board is our former mayor. City clerk is still on it, but other than that, there was none of us that were on that board, and this just fixes that.
Let's fix it. Move for adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this resolution for the consolidated plan. For our pension plan. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
The resolution R2111. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
That passes 7-0. All right, council, let's see. We have one more thing from Ms. Mabry Williams. It's an ordinance amending the inclement weather policy in the employee handbook. Ms. Mabry Williams.
The inclement weather policy was created for several years, and there was a clause in it that limited it to 3 days of inclement weather per year. And with what happened last week, we need to fix that problem with this policy. So we have taken that out of the wording, and there is no limit on the number of days any longer. Hopefully we will never have another winter weather episode like we just experienced, but just in case, we wanted to fix this for the future.
Thank you, Lisa. Council?
I make a motion to waive 3 readings.
Second.
The motion, a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
Make a motion for adoption.
Second.
Second.
And the emergency clause as well.
Thank you.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance with the emergency clause. Any further discussion?
Ms. Mabry Williams,
Yes.
unlimited?
Well, we didn't put a date The mayor will have to declare an emergency. Have to declare an emergency should we need
Okay.
to.
Okay, so as long as the mayor declares, then,
Correct. He is the only one with the authority to declare an inclement weather day.
okay, just because somebody is allergic to the sun doesn't mean that they don't come to work that day.
No, sir. No,
Okay,
sir.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you for laughing, Mr. Jones.
I'm sorry, man. I didn't know my mic was on.
Mr. Garrett.
This will be ordinance O-2129. Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Mr. Pruitt,
Aye.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
the emergency clause, Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes, Mr.
Aye.
Pruitt, Mr. Pruitt,
Aye.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Those both passed 7-0. Thank you, Lisa.
you.
In council, normally we would adjourn, and we still can if you'd like to, but I would like to ask you to suspend the rules. We have someone trying to give us some money. I would like to ask you to suspend the rules and let's talk about the CARES Act funding for the Conway Regional Airport.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, a second to suspend the rules. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Mr. Bell, you're up, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. We do have a chance to get a little money. We found out just a couple of days ago that we were eligible for a small coronavirus grant at the airport for operations, a little bit more narrow than the last one, but we have had some overtime due to some quarantining out there, and obviously our fuel sales have been down, as you've heard, but this just gives us, this resolution allows us to apply for that grant from FAA.
I make a motion for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion, a second to approve this resolution. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
This will be resolution R-2112. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
That passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Thank you very much.
When I was thanking everybody, some of Mr. Bell's crew loaded up on their tractor and went downtown and helped Finley and his crew clean up during the snow too. Mr. Bell, I appreciate that. Now, I forgot to mention the sanitation department actually had a call from Phil Kirkland today talking about how much help the folks at the sanitation department was out there and how clean they had that area. So we've just got great departments citywide, and I appreciate everybody. Well, council, that's all we have tonight. I appreciate you joining us at 5:30. It's going to be exciting. It's fun to look forward to do something that the folks of the city are interested in. So I know you guys are going to put in a lot of hard work, but it's going to be great for our city. And that's all I have tonight. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Hey, I got a
Second.
question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Jones.
Who can I call next time I need some snow shovel?
Need some what?
You know my back is bad and I'm old, and that's kind of wore me out. Man. Do I have any friends would help me with a shovel?
It looks like Bart's got some equipment you could borrow.
No, I got beat up pretty bad for trying to help. I think you're out on me. Actually, if the truth be known about the whole reason why I was down here helping is actually twofold. First of all, my wife told me to get out of the house. Second of all, Finley wouldn't put me anywhere where the real work was going. He wanted me out of his way, so he made me come downtown.
Well, man, I heard a lot of people talking about how great it is to live in Conway because they did the streets and everything so well, and we should really be proud of that.
Yeah, and Bobby Kelly did a great job getting the information out to everybody too. So I appreciate everyone's time and hope you have a great week, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good night.